listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
I'm going to add comfort to your suffering. Hey there. Welcome back. Are you suffering? That sounds like an old commercial. Folks, do you suffer from the pain of psoriasis? No, I mean, are you or have you suffered recently? We all suffer. Once you get past a certain age, you've suffered more than once. As you move into different phases of your life, we glaze over things like grade school, middle school. There's some suffering there. High school, suffering. Having a boyfriend or girlfriend, suffering. Getting married. Trials and tribulations of having children, and so forth. Our job, our career, dealing with crowds, dealing with people, dealing with individuals, all that stuff can cause some pain because something bad happens, or something happens that we don't quite understand at the moment. And that's the stuff that we're going to talk about today. You've suffered. You may have done more suffering than most people you know. You may have suffered in unique and exciting and torturous ways. But you've suffered. And the suffering was a pain. And the pain, in retrospect, then became experience. And guess what that turns into? That experience, when properly handled, and for the most part, we do properly handle it, it turns into wisdom. That process is probably nothing new. It's probably something you understand intuitively. You may understand it more than intuitively, and me saying it out loud like this might be the first time you've actually heard that. Like, oh yeah, that painful thing turned into me learning about that painful thing, and me learning about that painful thing after a while was more than just when A happens, do B. It was a little more subtle, a little more thorough. It had a little bit more depth. It became wisdom. And that's what I'm talking about right now. The interesting thing about that process is we can be more aware of it before it's in retrospect. If you are going through something difficult right now, you're building future wisdom. And that sounds so rah-rah, coachy, salesy, doesn't it? Like, you're just building future wisdom, so stick with it. Hooray. I'm not telling you that. I'm not saying, just deal with it. I'm saying that I'm doing that time thing I do all the time, where I say, hey, if we learn something this way, now we can flip it around. So let's do that. Let's cheat right now together. If you look back on something that was really painful you suffered through, you no doubtedly came away with, I'm never doing that again. Or, this is why I don't do that. This is why I do it this way. Or, we've learned through the years that this really is the best way. It's that pain equals experience equals wisdom. So, since we're able to look back on something that was hurtful and now we know that it's wisdom, let's shove it up into our timeline a bit more. So instead of our present being the wisdom, let's look at the present of the suffering that we're doing, the present of the things that are painful right now. Okay? So if there's something in your life right now that's a little bit painful, and there probably is, if we look forward in our timeline, that's going to turn into experience and turn into wisdom. So if we look at the thing right now that's causing us the heartache and causing us the problem, it's at least slightly comforting knowing that we're actually seeing the larval stage of wisdom, right? Maybe it allows us to deal with it a little bit easier. Maybe knowing that not only are you going to learn from this, you're going to kind of be an elder about it. You're going to be an expert about it, whether you want to or not. And there's a lot of things that you're probably pretty wise about that you never thought you were going to be an expert on. I can tell you personally that I never thought I would write 2 books on relationships, that I would never dissect all the nuances of human beings interacting that I would never have not only a book on online dating, but have a ton of stories that I didn't include. A lot of those stories were fairly painful. Anyone who's done online dating can tell you that it's very exhausting, very taxing, sometimes very demeaning, and putting yourself out there is really the only way to do it. So you really have to force yourself through this painful period to gain the wisdom. And I did gain wisdom. I gained the wisdom to create some rules so that I knew not to go back and recreate the pain again. And for the most part, I stuck to them. And of course, anytime I bend or break it and say, oh, well, maybe not this time, that's when I got burned. So I learned quite a bit. And I'm sure in your life, like I said, you have things that you are rather wise about that you never thought you'd be the elder when it came to being wise about this particular subject. So the exercise for today's podcast, should you choose to accept it, is look at your past pains and how it became wisdom, or simply look at some of the wisdom that you seem to have, that you truly believe in, and remember back with your emotional memory of, well, where did this wisdom come from? Again, with me, for example, I have quite a bit of wisdom when it comes to, I know, to dating. I don't really want that. I really didn't want that. I really don't want all this wisdom that I have when it comes to that. But by forcing myself to go out there again and again and again, I got it. So you have wisdom on things. So look at the wisdom that you have, figure back where it came from, and that'll help you to understand going forward now when you are going through a difficult period in your life or a difficult thing or whatever. And you may shake your fist at the sky or wherever the cloud exists, or the cloud exists. You may shake your fist at me and say, you know what, I don't care. This is really annoying. I hate this. This really pisses me off. That's fine. That's fine. But that is going to turn into wisdom, because you really only have two choices. You can completely ignore it and act like you have a 2-digit IQ or a 1-digit IQ. Is it like 2-digit? May not be all that bad. I'll have to look that up. But you know what I mean. Sorry. No, I offended everyone with like a 99 IQ or something. Anyway, I was thinking in like terms of 11. I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, you can either ignore it and just go through the pain again and again and again, like the caveman who keeps shoving his hand into fire and going, fire bad? Ooh, fire bad. Fire bad? Fire bad. Or you can understand that you're really gaining wisdom from this stuff. It really is kind of comforting to know that. It really is comforting to know that I'm learning. This is a learning process, you know? People say that all the time, but this is what they mean when they say it's a learning process. It's that gathering of wisdom, which is also why you can't help someone in a crappy relationship, because they have to experience it. You can't say, well, you know, from my perspective, I've gone through 7 of those. You don't want to do this, or this is going to end in flames. Just like when you're advising your teens and your children of all ages, and you say, honey, I went through this. This is the way it works out. Their brains aren't made that way, just like yours wasn't at their age. Their brain isn't made to go, oh, okay, I won't do that. They're desperately trying to learn and test boundaries, so they have to go through that themselves too. So that's why it's really hard to sometimes impart this wisdom on people, because you gain the wisdom through a certain process and you're trying to circumvent that process for them because you love them, because you care, because you don't want to see them hurt. And as you find out as a parent or as a brother or sister, depending on their relationship, sometimes you just simply can't. You just have to just sit around and pick up the pieces. And no, I told you so is really not the best response either. So hopefully this made sense to you, and hopefully you can do this exercise, and hopefully I can save you a little bit of suffering by adding some comfort to the suffering. And as always, if so, let me know. I love the feedback that I get. I love when people write to me. I love when people comment on Instagram. I love when people comment on the podcast itself and they rate it and so forth. Someone rated it And then also the comment was, I love this particular podcast the best. So it really helped me to understand that they really love the guest or they really love the subject. So you take care. Bye-bye. Hey there. Thanks for listening. You know I always appreciate your feedback, right? Well, here's your chance. You can connect with me on Instagram, via the Alchemy for Life site, or most other social media. If you like this podcast, you may love my new book, Alchemy for Life: Formulas for Success. The 239-page paperback is available on Amazon and everywhere else you get your books. All this info is available at Alchemy for Life. Thank you. See you next week.